Chapter 1. His Return. For years I have slumbered. For years I kept to myself in my own dimension. I made to get away from my world. A world I had once loved, but come to hate. A world where the greedy and the corrupt spread like a plague. A world where those who would oppose such things were either too weak, too stupid, or in some cases too young to do anything. Even worse, some of those who did have the strength did not have the resolve to end the life of these evil people, because it went against their morality. So I did it for them, and what was my reward? Being persecuted for doing what others did not have the spine to do in my place. These so-called good people portrayed me as some villain seeking to monopolize the world by wiping out the competition. How cliché of them. They were just trying to save face and make the people see them as heroes who were fighting the good fight regardless of losing. Sore losers, the lot of them. So I left the world before they could hunt me down, to bind me, to control me. Oh, they tried all three. Oh, how they tried, ha! Morons, all. A few of the smarter ones came close to finding my domain, but in the end, time was my ally, and time defeated my enemies for me. Still, it was fun to watch them try to stop my evil from spreading. What evil? The only evil I ever did was seduce sexy, beautiful women and have hot, passionate sex with them. Was that wrong? Of course not. Okay, that wasn't entirely true. I had seduced and slept with quite a few married women, and those already in some relationship with a man. Some of whom were the wives and girlfriends of my enemies. So the hatred of me by said enemies was... Okay, that was not entirely true either. By some I mean a lot, and by somewhat justified I mean these idiots hunting me should have focused on pleasing their women over coming after to me, in pursuit of trying to control power incarnate. Seriously? Why hunt someone who wants to be left alone when you could be at home with your smoking hot wife with strong sexual needs? That was how I saw peace coming to my world. Not through just having power or bonds with others, but through the way of the super pervert. Through the way of love, lust, and enjoying the feelings that come with it. Why hate your fellow man and destroy him when you could be with a woman and get yourself laid? Some people actually prefer to pursue power they cannot control, contain, or use over being with a hot woman who wants to be the object of your attention. Blasphemous. Such men clearly don't know how to please a woman in any shape or form in my mind, and as such don't deserve a degree of pity. So here I am, within my own dimension, watching the world that was once my home after so many years have gone by that it is no more. The idiots tried one final means to locate me, and it blew up in their faces. Quite literally. The resulting explosion in the aftermath had set humanity back to the extreme dark ages. Once where they used stones and clubs, and the intelligence of people was reduced to what would later be called cavemen. That was ages ago. Now though, the world had changed along with people. People had finally evolved back into the humans they once were in my time. Only with one major difference I noticed right away. They didn't have any chakra, not one speck of it. Or at least, not enough to do jutsas of the lowest kind. No, it was faint. Just enough to sustain their lives. Oh sure, some of the people in the world had more chakra over others, but not by much. But that wasn't what got my attention at the moment. No. What had my attention was the humans of the world had changed in other ways. In terms of technology. In terms of the magic now being employed by those who could wield it over chakra. I theorized magic was a warped form of chakra, but I never really wished to test the theory myself. What also got my attention was this constant battle waging between those on the side of good and those fighting on the side of evil. Such a curious thing to see the state of the world as it is now. Heroes in capes, tights, and other strange clothes doing battle against villains with their reasons for fighting these said heroes. Again, some were so cliché on both sides of the fence. Some did good because it was to protect innocent people. Some did evil because they hated the world and wanted to rule it. The world was so black and white with hints of gray so thin, you had to squint to see the nearly invisible line that bridged the gap between the two. Someone needed to shake up the board, to smear more gray into it. And who better to do it than myself? And it just so happens an excuse of sorts has now given me the means to enter the world again to shake it up. To twist it, to turn it, to bend it over and give it a good fucking like there was no tomorrow. Starting with the ambitious sorceress currently trying out a spell designed to summon a powerful demon to do her bidding. Cadmus' secret base spell chamber. Tala was in a room she had designed specifically for this special moment. She had been very pushy, demanding for everything in this chamber to be designed exactly to her exact specifications. Naturally, the highest members of Cadmus' High Council Committee were hesitant to let her have what she wanted. They always were, since none of them trusted her despite the obviously skilled talents she possessed in the magical field. Not all that surprising, since they were so reliant on their technology and science. Mysticism was so easily explained these days by it, according to the Cadmus scientists employed here. The string theory, they said, alternate dimensions, that was their reason. Some form of energy which came from space on a distant faraway galaxy, shooting itself all the way to the planet one night in a 1 in 269 billion odd chance it would hit the Earth, and all without hitting anything else in the process. Idiots. A lot of them. They didn't even believe the gods of old even existed, yet Tala knew otherwise. Ancient artifacts from Greece, Egypt, and other items radiated with the magical properties told in the legends surrounding the gods. Diana of the Messira herself was said to be blessed by the Greek pantheon of gods and had the powers to back it up. Of course, the Cadmus High Council were all skeptical about the ancient gods, since the Christian faith they belonged to had called all pagan gods evil, and anything associated with them, magic included, to be evil by extension. They would of course use her magic for the greater good, considering certain heroes like Superman, as well as some others, were vulnerable to magic, and would need her expertise to a point. But in the end, they would keep her at arm's length. No doubt there was a team on standby to kill her once the usefulness she provided ran out. Not that they would get a chance to give the order. Tala would show them that the magic she commanded could still be a driving, influential force in the world. And what better to do it than summoning a powerful demon to do her bidding in terms of crushing her enemies, both in terms of the Justice League and within Cadmus itself. Come forth, great demon, the most powerful of the most powerful. One who makes the earth shake and the animals shiver in fear. One who can make all things in this world bow to your presence without equal. Come forth. Your mistress commands it, called out Tala while she used her magic to rip open a portal needed to bring forth the demon she desired. And sure enough, the call was answered. Violently. The room shook when the portal she had set up exploded with power. Energy consumed the room around her, making the sorceress gasp in surprise and with a hint of fear. The spell she used from days of ancient times, long before her own life began, did not specify what it was she summoned, or even if it could be controlled. She thought her magic would be strong enough when it came out of the portal in a weakened enough state from being summoned by her. But now, Tala wasn't even sure if she would survive the next few minutes. The walls were filled with ancient writings to contain magic within the room. This was done for security and safety reasons, to ensure the rest of Cadmus didn't interfere after she was done, and so in the event she failed, it didn't blow up the secret base with everyone in it for the next 200 miles. When the storm of power finally refocused itself, gathering into a single spot, Tala saw it taking the form of a man. No, man would be too simple a word. This wasn't a man. This wasn't even a demon. This was power incarnate. This was a being who she sensed could easily flick his wrist and end half the planet without breaking a sweat. Tala did not summon a demon like she hoped. Oh no, she had summoned something better. She had summoned a god. Before her stood a god made flesh with the figure of an athletically lean, well-built man in his late teens to early 20s, who looked like he could handle the world's best fighters without effort on his part. One with long, spiky golden hair reaching just to the middle of his back. Whisker-like birthmarks showed on his face. Sharp canines showed from what she saw of his mouth. His eyes were closed, his face a vision of focus, and was clearly centering his power to keep it under control. His clothing was that of baggy white pants a martial arts fighter would wear, with a black sash around the waistline. He wore no shoes of any kind, and his hands sported claw-like forms and sharp nails capable of cutting into flesh or anything else if they tried. When the figure did open his eyes, Tala gasped from her position on the ground at the sight of them. One red, one purple, one with 3 tomos within them. The other was sporting a rippled look, while both eyes glowed with power beyond measure. Before Tala could ponder this further, The figure focused entirely on her and was in front of the sorceress in a blink, an eye. In an instant, Tala felt his grip on her arm and lifting the woman off the ground like she weighed nothing. He looked right into her eyes with his own, and she found herself frozen, unable to do anything. What could she do? This being, this demon, this god she had summoned was beyond her means to control. Tala was at his mercy and didn't know what to expect from him. So it was quite the shock to Tala that he suddenly kissed her so passionately while his remaining free hand slipped underneath the slit in her dress and groped her ass. It took her a moment, though it felt longer, to realize what was happening. The fact she was now moaning from his actions didn't help, and she pushed against him while now muffling her protest. When the man finally broke in the kiss, Tala, on anger-based instinct of being taken advantage of, slapped. Yes, slapped the godly figure right in the face with all of her anger-filled womanly strength, and her eyes widened when she realized what just happened. And this being's response, he laughed in amusement. Damn, I have been slapped by a woman since, how long has it been? Not since I did the same thing to Anko after she chased me through the forest of death. That one time I did a cool prank. And I got the drop on her, commented the man to himself, at the mention of the woman from his past. Sure, she may have hated for the prank before going from predator to the prey in the end of their chase, but the sexual benefits of him screwing her stupid made up for her anger over it afterwards. Good times. Let go of me, commanded Tala, though her voice did not show the strength behind the words spoken to make him obey. And why would I want to do that? Asked the man curiously, while giving the ass of this fine-looking sorceress a squeeze to make her squeak and blush. Because I summoned you. I am your master. I am Tala, mistress of the magic arts. You belong to me, exclaimed Tala while trying to get out of his grip and the feeling of his hand on her butt. You summoned me. After my little entrance here just now, do you really think that your little spell summoned me to this world? To control me like some pet to obey your every command? Questioned the man while he pressed Tala closer to him and grinned at her. You couldn't have come here to this world through any other means, answered Tala in a still nervous tone while she blushed further when something quite big and hard from him pressed against her at the hip. Wrong, my dear. I have always been a part of this world. I just chose to leave it long ago before times are what they are now. I could enter and leave at any time, but your actions have finally given me an excuse to enter it once more and do something about the world as it is now, replied the figure while Tala was confused. What do you mean? Asked Tala while the figure became almost completely serious, despite holding her the way he was right now. The world is unstable, out of balance. Good seeks to destroy evil. Evil seeks to destroy good. One wants peace, but doesn't have the spine to get it done the right way. The other seeks to conquer the world, but does it in the most incredibly stupid ways, with no real understanding of what they do in the process, and thus ignore the ramifications of their action. Both sides are constantly hiding behind their excuses of doing things for the great good, their hatred for the world, or some other stupid bullshit in just doing such things for fun. I have watched this world get to the point where I am sick of the constant tug of war between the two main opposing sides for the right to influence the planet's masses. It is high time a third, more capable party stepped into the arena to change things, and for the better. Namely, me, said the figure, now grinning at the end. And just who are you? What are you? Asked Tala with the figure's grinning increasing. Me? My name is Naruto, Uzumaki, Naruto to be exact, and as to what I am the Naidame Jubi, the most powerful Baiyu in existence, declared Naruto, with Tala now looking shocked and confused by this. I don't understand your title, said Tala while Naruto's grin increased and his eyes gleamed with lust. Don't worry, my dear. In time you will understand. In time you will see things my way. In time we will bring an end to this stupidity between heroes and villains running around this world, replied Naruto, while giving Tala's ass one more squeeze. And how do you intend to do that? Asked Tala while blushing once more with the reminder of her current position, strangely making the woman to be quite aroused. Simple, my dear Tala. I am going to remove key players on both sides in my own way. I won't be on the side of good or evil like many people would believe someone of my own status wishes to take, replied Naruto while growling hungrily into Tala's ear and making the woman shiver. If you are not siding with heroes or villains, what side are you on? Asked Tala while she felt him kissing her neckline sensually. The side that will triumph over all in the years to come. The side of the super pervert, exclaimed Naruto before looking right into Tala's eyes, and she almost reminded him of his wife Hinata. Almost. Super. What? Asked Tala in shock and wondered just happened to her life to be in the presence of this strange individual. Naruto's response was to keep on grinning and kiss the sorceress with a passion, with the woman finding herself melting, figuratively, under his touch. Tala tried to fight back at first since she was not about to surrender her body to just anyone. But her body was no longer capable of resisting him. He had pressed all the right buttons before she could stop him. He had her pinned. He had her aroused, and he had made it quite clear from such close contact with his own appendage between his legs currently poking the front of her waist that it was not something he would be ashamed of using to pleasure a woman. She had lost the fight of resisting this godly being the first time he kissed her. It wasn't long before her moans of protest became moans of passion, and Tala's free hand began to caress Naruto's muscled upper body over trying to push it away. Soon, Tala felt her clothing falling to the ground of the destroyed room after it was equally destroyed by Naruto's clawed hands. He ripped the clothing off like the fabric was made of wet tissue paper, and the sudden feeling of nakedness was soon felt all over. It didn't bother her that she was naked. Tala never wore underwear most of the time anyway, and had a nearly unlimited amount of dresses like that one in her room. No, what she wanted right now was to see him naked. Her hand that had been free to roam his torso moved lower to his pants. The expert hand used in magic eventually got the sash Naruto used as a belt to come loose, and gave his pants a tug down to his ankles. Anxious, are we? Joked Naruto with a grin when he broke the kiss, and saw her eyes widen in shock from seeing and feeling his monster appendage. How can you be this big? Asked Tala almost breathlessly while she looked from it to him and back. If you only knew. Not that she has to know the age-old theory back from my time about how high chakra levels equals a massive endowment are quite true. Hinata always knew it to be true when we were younger, the shy peeping pervert. Damn, I miss her and the sex we had. That woman was a demon herself in the sack, just like Anko, Hana, Shizune, and the others I claimed. Thought Naruto with a smirk on his face, knowing Tala, like the other women in his love life, had been in awe of his third leg. Mainly because he and it ruined them for anyone else in all things sex-related. Tala, of course, soon found herself drooling at the sight of his endowment, and mentally wondered if it would even fit inside of her. Of course she was sure it would, but only after some effort, and lubrication on her part, would it be ready. As such, the sorceress got on her knees, staring at the massive thing, and inhaling its masculine scent. It made the woman shiver with lust, and was drawn to it like a moth to a flame. She needed this. She wanted this. She wanted him in every sense of the word. And Tala would have him. She was drawn to power. It was intoxicating. Power was an aphrodisiac to Tala, and this godly being was making the woman becoming soaking wet between her legs. As for Naruto, he was growling approvingly at the woman's mouth, now attending to his erection in a loving fashion. Oh, how he needed this. Being away with no female contact for so long almost made him feel like a convict getting out of prison for so long, and the need for a woman to fuck taking over his mind. The woman in front of him clearly had a few lovers in the past from the way she worked on his shaft, though he doubted they were as endowed as himself, or were able to satisfy her in return. Naruto got the feeling her past lovers had been rather disappointing in terms of satisfying Tala in bed. He would have no problems there. After a nice long amount of time, Naruto finally came in Tala's mouth, with the amount nearly overwhelmed the woman. Not surprising, considering Naruto didn't tell her short of a groan before firing his load off. But she endured. Tala was not a woman who let things go or intimidate her, despite what had happened recently with the titled Jubi, as Naruto had called himself, entering her life. When she committed to something, Tala went all the way and saw it through to the end. Like now. And this so much. You came so much, said Tala in shock and breathlessly, after she swallowed everything he released with some effort while Naruto smirked down at her. And this was just the beginning of our fun, my dear, said Naruto, with Tala now looking slightly surprised to hear this. Just the beginning? Asked Tala before she noticed his erection had not died down, and was clearly ready for another round. You didn't think it would be over after one time, did you? Questioned Naruto, with his smirk growing at her realization. His body's performance sexually. He had stamina to match his size. Tala didn't know if she should be happy or concerned regarding how her body would most likely be sore tomorrow. Naruto's grin only increased when he saw Tala's eyes glaze over in lust at realizing he could do so much more after what she just did. He quickly picked her up off the ground and held Tala by the waist with his erection, looking ready to spear the sorceress right between the legs. Before Tala could even voice her concerns about it fitting, Naruto's erection had entered, and the woman let out a silent scream of shocked pleasure. She grabbed onto his shoulders while her legs tried to wrap around his body on instinct as Naruto thrust deeper into her womanly body, while trying to fill her with his shaft. Never had Tala felt so full in all her life. None of her previous lovers even came close to making sex feel this good. Of course, to be fair, none of them were a primordial god-like entity with the power to rip the world to pieces, but that was beside the point. Claim me, take me, I am yours forever. I don't care what path you take for this world. I want to be with you no matter what, whispered Tala passionately into his ear while she held on for dear life, while Naruto held on to the woman by her ass and thrust deeper, until he couldn't go any further. She only made Naruto grin further while he kept pounding away at her. Damn, right, you are mine forever. And not just you. Every hot heroine and villainess who catches my fancy are going to be mine too, thought Naruto, while his plan would soon be set in motion once he was done screwing Tala to the point where she would tell him just about anything he wanted to know about Cadmus or the Justice League. And he had plans. Plans within plans. First, he needed to bang Tala into blissful unconscious. So far, Naruto was off to a good start there. Second, he needed to do some digging around into Cadmus and the Justice League they were fighting against in the shadows. Never hurts to have blackmail and leverage against the warring parties should the time comes to use it. Third, he needed to remove certain people from each organization and make the world a better place for it in the process. Not that hard, really, since each piece from the opposing sides of the board could easily be removed in different ways. Some in a more lethal sense over others, but not all. Naruto had watched these heroes and villains do battle against each other at times, both solo and as a group. He knew of their lives, their hardships, and why they resorted to crimes or fighting against those who commit crimes. And finally, his fourth objective would be to put himself in a strong position of power, where neither side alone or together could challenge him if they were to learn the truth behind what he really is, and decide to do something about it. The last thing Naruto wanted was for both sides to unite and actually manage to defeat or imprison him just for being himself. That would suck. Tala's scream from the orgasm she just gained, which brought Naruto back to the present of what he was doing and who he was doing it with. Looking at Tala, the Naidame Jubi realized he must have been lost in his own thoughts for some time with his body going on full autopilot, because Tala was showing she had been having multiple orgasms. He was thinking about his plans for the world so deeply just now, Naruto almost missed out on the sensation of his own release and firing his load into Tala's pussy. Her own body was glistening with sweat from moving up and down his body in order to keep up with him. The grip she had on his shoulders was weakened considerably, and her breath was one of someone who was extremely tired from such exercise. So tired. Need rest, whispered Tala while Naruto held her and felt him still hard within her body. "And you will, when I say you can rest," replied Naruto while giving her a mini thrust, and made Tala gasp at the jolt of pleasure she felt. Well, at least the meeting with the Cadmus High Council committee members won't be for the next few days, thought Tala before she found herself on the ground, on her knees and being taken from behind by Naruto. Oh yeah? She was going to be sore after this. Tala's bedroom sometime later. Eventually, the hot, passionate sex Naruto and Tala started having in the destroyed spell chamber had somehow moved to her bedroom, and ultimately to the bed itself. Right now, Naruto was currently naked, lying down on the bed with Tala on top of him, and the sorceress herself sleeping with a very happy, content look on her face. He ran his clawed hand lovingly through her long purplish hair and thought about who to target next in terms of females this world had to offer. Who among the two factions of Cadmus and the Justice League, or possibly Justice League affiliated organization, would he choose from to quite literally seduce to his side? From what Tala had told him right before she fell asleep, following their time screwing each other silly, some the heroes all over were rumored to be in relationships with each other, which only confirmed what Naruto knew from his observations when watching the world from time to time to check on its overall progress. Sure, some hid the relationships they had to keep the public, and their enemies at large in the dark. To that end, he had to plan accordingly on which woman to seduce, and who to leave alone depending on their relationship with the man they were already with. Namely, the rumored romantic relationship between Superman and Wonder Woman. Though why call the romantic relationship a rumor when everyone on the damn planet knew it was real? The two were deeply in love, and made the other happy. The problem Naruto saw was not with the two being together, but various factions within Cadmus, and the villains out there wanting the couple to split, or one of them dying before they could have a child. He had seen enough of the history of the planet, and when Superman went solo before forming the Justice League, with its founding members to know the Man of Steel, longed for a day where he could have a family. To truly settle down after years of protecting the world and having a child or possibly children to help carry on his legacy as a hero, and even that of the Kryptonian people he came from. Naruto also knew there were few women in the known universe truly compatible with Superman's physiology to make such a dream become reality, Wonder Woman being chief among them. Sadly, Naruto also knew many feared the union between the two, and what their progeny could do if allowed to develop his or her own potential. As such, the Cadmus higher-up were monitoring the movements of the two closely in order to properly determine whether the two heroes had actually succeeded in procreating, to learn where they would go or suspect they would go for a lengthy amount of time during the overall pregnancy period, whether on Earth or on one of the League's deep space missions set up as a goodwill mission to some distant world. Naruto had seen the good the two had done for the world, and was upset the world in turn did not seem to appreciate them as much as it should. Only a third of the world overall as a whole seemed to like Superman these days, same with Wonder Woman, and the Justice League he helped form with the other founders. And for what? All because of the fact the Man of Steel was at one point brainwashed by some dark entity from another galaxy for a time? It seemed stupid in Naruto's mind to hate Superman for that, just like it was stupid of his village to hate Kurama for what Uchiha Obito did the night of his birth in taking control of the fox in order to make the Biju attack Konoha. They still did, but that was beside the point. Besides, Naruto had to give Superman props for holding back the way he did when it came to fighting villains. The Nidaime Jubai sensed the Kryptonian was holding back a lot of his strength in a fight, afraid to actually kill someone, and be labeled a murderer or even an uncontrollable killer among the people. The adopted son of Earth could have used his powers for evil, become a tyrant who few could match or challenge. It was clear to him that Superman loved the people on Earth and wanted them to love him back, so he did everything possible to help them progress to that point. The Man of Steel was like an adopted stepchild, and wanted to prove himself worthy of his adopted home in front of his adopted step-siblings. An understandable and noble goal, to be sure. But Naruto knew deep down, Superman wouldn't get a fair shake with the world since he was alien by birth, and as such would not be truly loved by humanity. Or at least the vast majority of humanity. Most people only really tolerated Superman as a whole because of all the work he did in protecting them. But sure enough, it would only last so long as he was able to keep doing his job of protecting them. The day Superman could no longer protect the Earth, Naruto knew humanity as a whole would turn on him, and all the Man of Steel would have left are his true friends. His loved ones, who truly cared about his well-being, would be protecting him from harm when the time came. So Naruto decided to help the Man of Steel out. Yes, he would be the first person on the board to be removed from this conflict. Wonder Woman would be next by default since the Naidame Jubi didn't want them to be separated from each other. No. And Shine. Superman was someone who deserved to be happy and live a life of peace somewhere without the worry of his family coming to harm. A grand reward of sorts for Superman's years of noble, loyal service to the mostly ungrateful people of this planet, in protecting them from all sorts of evil. Yes. A reward where Superman's desire buried deep in his heart would be made reality, and know of happiness without fear of it being destroyed. And after that, he would focus on the rest of the Justice League and Cadmus. I need to do more research into his background before I make my move to remove those two heroes from the world. As for Cadmus, I will have Tala here fill me in about them at a later time, and what she knows about the organization before I make my move. From what I saw earlier during my observations of the world, those in charge are like a bunch of scheming power-hungry morons like Danzo, and those old shriveled-up shinobi elders I had back in Konoha. Not only that, but I need to see the rest of the world, and just how messed up it is before I can fix it. My way, thought Naruto while he continued thinking about his plans for the world and how to execute them. He couldn't wait to smash up the board holding these two factions and turn the world on its axis. Author note: Yay! I wrote another new fic. Now